Hey, continuing with the people I've been asked to debunk in this COVID-19 saga. This name was put forward and has popped up a few times before on the forum from Michael Eagle. So my first question is, who the hell is Michael Eagle?
My name is Dr. Michael Eagle.
Oh, you're Michael Eagle.
My original training was first-class degree in biochemistry and toxicology.
Long story short, he's a pharmacologist and a former executive at Pfizer. So let's get to the point. What's he claiming and what's his source?
They took the view that since SARS-CoV-2 was a, quote, new virus, that they believed there wouldn't be any immunity at all in the population.
Unfortunately, Eden gives no source for this claim. He just says he remembers hearing it. Whenever someone refuses to give a source, it's a good sign that either they don't want people to check what they're saying, or they've got a fuzzy memory and haven't checked to see if they remembered correctly. It's always very quick and easy to check someone's source and show that they've, well, let's call it, made a mistake. When no source is given, then you have to spend time and effort trawling through documents, trying to find the evidence for their claim. If it doesn't exist, that could take forever. In this case, Eden's comment about SAGE made no sense. After all, throughout history, there have always been people with natural immunity during any pandemic. It would seem strange for epidemiologists to deny this. And of course, they didn't. SAGE stated quite clearly that there would be people immune to the virus. They even modeled how many people would have that natural resistance. Perhaps what Eden misunderstood was that SAGE said there wouldn't be enough of these people to stop the spread of the virus effectively. In other words, herd immunity. And he got this wrong too.
You don't need masks, they don't work. Forget lockdowns, they never slow transmission.
Once again, Eden gives no sources for these two claims. The only way to know whether masks and lockdowns work is to do proper clinical and epidemiological studies, then have them peer-reviewed and published so that other researchers can respond, comment, confirm, or disprove them. Eden hasn't done any of that. He's just made a proclamation, which is how religions work. But this time, it's easy to cite the scientific studies because I already did my homework when I made a couple of videos on these subjects last year. Here I showed studies that found masks are not very effective in protecting the wearer if they're handled incorrectly and not accompanied by frequent hand washing, but they are effective in preventing the wearer from spreading an infection to others. I showed this quite graphically in my video. Masks are even more effective in preventing infected people from spreading the virus. This test shows droplets, they're visible in green, emanating from someone just talking without a mask.
Stay healthy.
But wearing a mask stops that completely.
Stay healthy. Water. Stay healthy.
I've also shown studies which all confirm the effectiveness of lockdowns in slowing the spread of infection, regardless of whether you think lockdowns are socially, legally, or ethically acceptable. But the most common place Eden's name came up was this claim that COVID vaccine is female sterilization. Okay, firstly, did he really say that? And if he did, based on what? To find out, of course, we have to follow the source trail. No, not the source trail, the source trail. This Facebook image being passed around has the source written right there. It's a reprint of this blog called Health and Money News. The vaccine contains a spike protein called Setember, vital for the formation of human placenta in women. If the vaccine works so that we form an immune response against the spike protein, we're also training the female body to attack Setember, which could lead to infertility in women. And what's the source for this claim? No prizes for guessing. It's not a peer-reviewed study published in a respected scientific journal. It's a petition. Unlike a peer-reviewed study, anyone can write a petition. I could write a petition claiming that vaccines cause your arm to be magnetized. And before you say, come on, no one would be stupid enough to believe that.
Don't see that. And there it is. Could go step into my arm.
So, did the petition say the vaccine is female sterilization? No, not even Eden would make that claim because there's no evidence for it at all. What Eden and his co-petitioner Wodarg did was cobble together a few bits of information that invited speculation. Several vaccine candidates are expected to induce the formation of humoral antibodies against the spike proteins of SARS. Well, let's put that into simple English and break the claim down. Eden says antibodies are trained to attack the spike protein, the business end of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. The spike protein contains a homologous form of syncytin-1. We'll see what that means in a minute. Syncytin-1 is also present in women to make the placenta during pregnancy. So, the antibodies may attack syncytin-1, and if they do, the placenta can't be formed. Result, sterile women. Experts who work in the field of virology and immunology say his theory is complete nonsense. Firstly, syncytin-1 and the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein are completely different proteins. They have different sizes, different shapes, and different functions, just like two different buildings. Immunologists say that it's ridiculous to suggest that antibodies can't tell the difference. But what about Eden's argument that the spike protein contains a homologous form of syncytin-1? Well, that sounds impressive, but what it boils down to is that a very short amino acid chain in the spike protein is the same as a very short amino acid chain in syncytin-1. Immunologists say antibodies aren't going to confuse the two, because it's a bit like saying that I might confuse this house with this house because they share the same type of Greek pediment in the middle. If there are a few overactive B cells that will attack human proteins on the basis of a few identical amino acids, the body has a way of deselecting them. It's called negative selection. If the body didn't have that function, then not only the immune response to SARS-CoV-2 vaccines would trigger an attack on our own proteins, so would every other immune response. That would pretty much make every woman on Earth infertile. Since we're all here, I guess that hasn't happened. And there's more. Not only is this small sequence of amino acids in the spike protein unlikely to be mistaken for syncytin-1, experts point out that the antibodies don't even attack that part of the spike protein anyway. So the door to the smaller house might be in the front, but the door to get into the bigger house is in a completely different location. But the biggest problem for Eden's claim isn't that it doesn't stack up on a theoretical level, he's been disproved on a practical level too. After all, lots of women caught SARS-CoV-2 and then became pregnant, or they caught the virus in the early stages of pregnancy. Studies show no evidence that antibodies were blocking the formation of their placentas. Their chances of miscarriage were the same as women who didn't have such antibodies. There are also studies looking at women who were vaccinated, and again, no evidence that their chances of miscarriage or infertility were any worse than women who weren't vaccinated. Two scientists who've done extensive research in this field analyzed serum from women with COVID-19 and didn't find any reaction between patients' antibodies and syncytin-1. And this study not only confirmed no similarity between the amino acid sequences of the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein and syncytin-1, but also showed no reaction with syncytin-1 at all when it did an analysis of convalescent serum from patients with COVID-19. In fact, this study even found that a lot of vaccinated women became pregnant while participating in clinical trials, even though they were told not to get pregnant during the trial. So you could argue that the vaccine increased fertility. I'm kidding! Oh God, please let's not start now with this. How many times and in how many different ways does this claim need to be busted? Even Eden and his co-author on the petition admit there's no evidence to support this speculation. There's no indication whether antibodies against spike proteins of SARS viruses would also act like anti-syncytin-1 antibodies. However, if this were to be the case, which, as the research has clearly shown, it isn't. Eden's speculation in the petition was so weak that even the bloggers didn't think it was up to scratch, so they had to embellish it. It's obviously not much of an argument to say that the two proteins share a short string of amino acids, so they changed that to the spike protein is called syncytin-1. In other words, they're the same thing. Much more convincing. And instead of there's no indication that antibodies would attack syncytin-1 and cause infertility, That had to be changed to COVID vaccine is female sterilization. Much more definite. And that got passed around Facebook and Twitter. How easily these myths get started. Eden's petition of the blogs that misquoted it had a huge impact. According to this research paper, internet searches on the subject of the vaccine causing infertility were pretty flat until the petition was launched and the blogs were posted. Then the number of internet searches ballooned. While we're dealing with myths about the vaccine and sterilization, Health and Money News was also responsible for spreading another fanciful story headlined, "Designer of COVID vaccine admits vaccine will only sterilize 70% of the population," which doesn't make much sense. Why would the designer of a leading vaccine, Professor John Bell, go on television to publicly announce that it will sterilize only 70% of the population? Was he hoping for 100%? Why is he admitting any kind of sterilization on national television? A more accurate quote is in the body of the article, but it still makes no sense. These vaccines are unlikely to completely sterilize the population. They're very likely to have an effect which works in a percentage, say 60 or 70%. End quote. Believe him, someone who has these levels of credentials doesn't misspeak without correcting himself. The claim, of course, went viral on Facebook and Twitter, and as you'd expect, instead of being skeptical and checking the facts, people expressed outrage. He openly admits depopulation via sterilization. He actually doesn't even realize what he's just admitted to on live TV. So did Bell inadvertently blurt out a secret? Did he misspeak? Or is the blogger who runs Health and Money News an idiot? Answer: the blogger who runs Health and Money News is an idiot. Sterilization has several meanings, including the rendering of something free from viable microorganisms. So when a vaccine renders you free of a virus, that's called sterilization. If a vaccine renders 70% of the population free of a virus, then 70% of the population has been sterilized. It doesn't mean 70% of the population is unable to conceive children. Unless, of course, reproduction was the topic of conversation and not vaccines. There's only one way to find out.
And that then tells you can look at the real vaccinated population and see whether they've been protected. So I'm hoping that's going to happen pretty smartly this autumn. But then don't forget, these vaccines are unlikely to completely sterilize the population. They're very likely to have an effect which works in a percentage, say 60 or 70%. We'll have to look quite carefully, and the regulators will have to look quite carefully to make sure that it's done what we need it to do before it gets approved. So there will be a delay.
So no, Bell wasn't talking about reproductive sterilization. He was talking about sterilization from the virus. After the myth began circulating, Bell explained this himself to a fact-checking website. I was referring to the ability of the vaccines to completely eliminate viral replication, i.e. sterilize, and it had no relevance to fertility. That's pretty obvious, but just to make sure it's not Bell who's the idiot, I checked the scientific literature, and sure enough, this is a commonly used term in virology and immunology. Finally, another doctor discovered by that font of urban myths, Natural News. Doctor refuses to accept patients who get vaccinated for COVID-19, reads the headline. Why? Because he believes the myth started by Mike Eden that the vaccines cause infertility. A physician who goes by the name of Dr. Baker, Okay, has published a video explaining that he will no longer be accepting patients who were vaccinated for the Wuhan coronavirus. Dr. Baker does not want to risk the health and safety of his staff and patients by allowing the jabbed to be in close proximity to them. Wait, what? A doctor believes that if you get vaccinated, you're not only going to become infertile yourself, you're somehow going to spread that infertility to anyone you sit or stand next to. I'm sure Natural News must have misheard.
I have to take a stance in order to protect the people in my office. I am not willing to watch somebody who made a poor decision and got the shot stand next to a young female in my office and risk the chance of her becoming infertile.
No, the physician who goes by the name of Dr. Baker really does believe that. So, what's the evidence for this?
Let's talk about the size of a cell. You can't see it. Right? If I were to pile up millions of them, they'd be like this big. Well, viruses are smaller than cells. Spike proteins, I don't know. Are they smaller than... Nobody knows.
Point of information. Of course they know this spike protein has been intensively studied. Researchers know exactly what it's made of, what it does, how it does it, and of course how big it is. But carry on.
All I know is that when I ask the females in my office, they are all having, not all, 80% are having weird female cycles.
Okay, this raises a lot of interesting and frankly rather disturbing points. Firstly, what's the evidence that these women are having weird cycles because they sat next to a patient who'd been vaccinated? Secondly, 80% of what? How many women were involved in this study? In other words, how many work at your office? 5? And thirdly, what prompted you to start asking your female employees about their menstrual cycles anyway? I tried to do a similar survey of people I know, asking women who live nearby and the woman who works at the bakery about their menstrual cycles, and they all reminded me that the restraining order is still in place. Is the physician who goes by the name of Dr. Baker? Well, on his website, he describes himself as a professional speaker and an expert in healing. Okay, but does that mean you're a real doctor? If covering up symptoms with drugs and never actually fixing anything is what real doctors do, no, I'm not a real doctor. Well, by that definition, most doctors aren't real doctors, so here's what the physician who goes by the name of Dr. Baker should have said. In spending 3 years in medical school and passing exams, and then 2 years of internship, and then residency, and passing the licensing exam to practice medicine is what real doctors do, then no, I'm not a real doctor. Or to put it more succinctly,
I'm not a real doctor.
And yet Natural News calls him a physician, and other blogs are quite happy to quote him as if he is a real doctor. Which of course will impress a lot of people, but I never care about titles anyway. There are only 2 criteria for debunking crap on the internet. First, it has to be crap. Second, people believe it. There's a lot of difference between the physician who goes by the name of Dr. Baker and Dr. Yeaton in terms of their qualifications, but absolutely no difference in the way that both are spouting nonsense on the internet and people believe them.
First-class honours degree.
I know, and that sounds very impressive. Well, I've got a 3rd-class honours degree, and I came bottom of my class at school. It just goes to show that you don't have to be a dunce to post crap on the internet, and you don't have to be a genius to check sources and debunk it.
Reflection on my time is trying to end. Every time I skip the mirror, I see my body as an elder tree. And I ask him for the strength I need for the woman I'm trying to be. As time flies, tick tock, hey, time flies, tick tock, like a scramble as I wander, my body's going to fill my mind. But I wrinkles, I am scars, and I am everything I find. Every time I look in the mirror, I see my body as an elder tree. And I ask him for the strength I need for the moment I can try to be. 'Cause time flies. Tick-tock, hey, 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 hey. Time flies. Tick-tock, hey, 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 Every time that we hit the morning, I see the shadows underneath. The pale reflection of the woman that we tried to be. Every time I look in the mirror, I see my body as an elder tree. And I ask him for the strength I need for the woman that you're trying to be. 'Cause time flies. Tick-tock, hey, 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 hey. Time flies. Tick-tock, hey, 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 hey. Time flies. Tick-tock, hey, 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 hey. Time flies. Tick-tock, hey, 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 hey. Hello and welcome to Multi-Level Mondays, a weekly series all about pyramid schemes, Ponzi schemes, multi-level marketing, and other forms of business fraud. I'm the Illuminati, and today we're going to be talking about an MLM that's come pretty heavily requested despite their being fairly new and without a ton of information about them. 31 gifts. They're also just called 31 pretty frequently among my sources and online, so I'll be calling them 31 today for the sake of consistency and simplicity's sake. And to just be frank here, 31 is kind of, well, a train wreck. I do want to put a little disclaimer here at the front of the episode to say that, as I've stated in the past, you can believe whatever you want, religiously, spiritually, whatever, as long as you're not infringing on anyone else's rights. I am going to be criticizing this MLM and the way that I personally think it manipulates sellers, especially Christian sellers, using biblical verses and values. I'm not saying that anyone is wrong for being a Christian, just that using faith to promote a pyramid scheme is, well, a bit troubling. I am sure most of you probably knew that, but I feel like I just need to put that out there anyway. In case you can't tell from that disclaimer, we are in for one hell of a bumpy ride, so buckle up and let's get right into it. There's a fair bit of information online about the founder, Cindy Monroe. However, I'll be the first to admit that it's not necessarily the most reputable, or at least not completely recognizable sources. Since they do seem to corroborate one another, though, let's take a look at what we can find. Apparently, Cindy Monroe graduated from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga in 1994 with her bachelor's degree in business administration and marketing. Yet, she seemingly always had a passion for, or at least a draw to, MLMs, as one source claims. As a little girl growing up in Hickston in the 1980s, Cindy Monroe would buy candy at a neighborhood gas station and sell it for a profit to her older sister, Christy. Even back then, Cindy had an instinct for marketing, buying only candies that she knew her sister would be unable to resist, even after a markup. She was my best customer, says Monroe. When she attended college, she hosted Pampered Chef parties as a side job. A short while after graduation, Cindy worked in product development at a company called Unum. Unum is a life insurance company. They're not an MLM, and their reputation is a bit mixed depending where you look. Cindy worked there for some time before. In 2003, she got the idea for 31 gifts. Apparently, family and job responsibilities made it difficult to find time to visit new boutiques popping up around town where she lived with her husband, Scott, a musician and Baptist pastor, and her 2 children. According to Cindy, she recognized she wasn't the only one with this problem, so she decided to start her own direct selling business, 31 Gifts, where she would sell bags, purses, and other accessories. And I know this might sound dumb, and I'm sure we'll get into it later with the products, but how does this solve her problem? Like, how does this business actually solve the problem? Like, she made it clear that her issue was, I don't have enough time to stop at a new boutique near me, so her solution was, I'm going to start an entire fucking company, and not only a company, but a direct sales company with the most basic plain purses made in China, and that's how I'm going to support people. Like, how? And I don't know, maybe I'm missing a piece of the puzzle here, but that's literally what articles about her have said, that women who didn't have time to shop at small local businesses and boutiques were the people she was trying to cater to. And as for the name 31 Gifts, it comes from a Bible verse, Proverbs 31. The actual section itself is incredibly long, but the entire portion describes a woman working hard, being praised by her husband and children, and surpassing others. It ends with this little charmer. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. Again, I'm not about to sit here and criticize a Bible verse. You believe what you want, and whether or not the Bible verse is even accurately translated or not is a different story, but that's what she wants to go with, so that's what we're working with here. That said, I do think it's a bit odd that Cindy would use this in order to promote a company. Like, it implies that this MLM, this business model, this is proven to target the vulnerable and make people lose money 99% of the time, is work that would bring someone praise. There is nothing to praise about this business model. I mean, I read the verse. The work is described as speaking in wisdom, opening arms to the poor, working with eager hands, providing for a family, purchasing a field and planting a vineyard. Nowhere does it say she recruits others so that she may profit from their loss. The name aside, though, she started 31 Gifts in the basement of her home in Saudi Daisy, about 17 miles north of Chattanooga. She faced plenty of skepticism. Kathy Smith, a friend from Monroe's church, became her first employee, working in Monroe's basement alongside both Monroe and her then partner, Julie Sutton, whose role with the company decreased in later years. Smith recalls a conversation with a UPS delivery man who came by Monroe's house back in those days. He said, "Is this one of those garage businesses?" recalls Smith, who remains involved with 31 Gifts today as a member of the sales leadership team. I went, "Yes, sir," and he said, "Yeah, it'll probably never make it. I really wish I got that guy's business card to go, hey, do you remember what you sent to me that day?" Unfortunately for the people, often women in this particular case that fall victim to these scams, Cindy was right, and the business did begin taking off. In 2007, the business settled into a 40,000 square foot warehouse in Chattanooga, a far cry from Cindy's basement. Kathy Smith credits this with 31 Gifts being more personalized because you can monogram names and phrases on the products. And of course, Cindy being a pastor's wife didn't exactly hurt either. That's not even me drawing conclusions. They do say that company's religious roots played a massive role here. In 2009, the company reported $38 million in revenue. 4 years later, that leapt to $760 million, making them the fastest growing woman-owned business in the world. And they were, in fact, growing so rapidly that they had to actually implement a recruiting freeze and not allow any new signups for weeks in order to allow their facilities to even catch up. One source here says that the average consultant makes about $6,000 annually, even if that's not typical. Their income disclosure says very different, however. I'm not sure how they got those numbers, but yeah, we'll get into that. The point is here, Cindy and her business was growing quickly. She gained a new location in Columbus, Ohio, and found a supportive environment for her business. Ohio may not be quite the MLM mecca that Utah is, but it's incredibly familiar with MLMs as well, as it's home to Pure Romance, Just Jewelry, Green Organics, and more. 31 seemed to fit right in. They did have a few struggles with growth, especially around 2016, 2017, and the amount of consultants dropped nearly 50% around that time. Sort of hilariously, but one of Cindy's earliest employees said that some people just left because they had to go get jobs or whatever to support their families. So So they left this incredible opportunity at 31 to go get a job. Maybe it's because, 31 isn't a real job and it probably wasn't paying bills. How can Cindy advocate for this company when her own employees say, oh yeah, people were leaving because people needed real work? Still, in the past few years, the company seems to be increasing again, and even though they aren't at those peak times, there is an increase once again. According to Cindy, they also have a new Dallas area distribution center and plans to grow west as well as internationally. I really feel like it's a win-win, says Monroe, who launched initiatives targeting Latinas and African Americans in 2018. There are so many Latinas here in the U.S. that are already selling for us that have families in Mexico. So as soon as we open up that opportunity, they'll be asking their cousin, hey, would you love to sell 31 and make some extra money? I swear, whenever I hear about a company targeting the Latino community, all I can think about is Herbalife, and it gets me so incredibly frustrated knowing how they go after immigrants purposefully, and that they may not understand what kind of opportunity is actually being sold to them. Still, the finances are something we'll get into in just a moment. Anyway, now that we've got a pretty good idea for who this company is and what they're about, let's start taking a look at these products, any reviews they may have, and the controversy they've been in.
Twin, há filmaço que nos vai contar uma das maiores lendas da história da humanidade. Uma lenda que viverá para sempre.
He's Tarzan, it's your Jane. We've come for him.
While some of the complaints about 31 do have to do with the company itself, quite a lot of them are actually about the products. I obviously don't own any 31 products. I know that's pretty shocking, and nor am I well versed in the world of purses and handbags per se, but even I know that these prices are going to be absolutely insane by what I've already been seeing. You know how, when you go to the grocery store, they sell those reusable tote bags for, a couple dollars, and how, if you really want to go all out, you can buy, a set of collapsible reinforced ones for $20, with the little wheels on it, so you can just roll it to your car? Well, get this. A single large reusable tote bag is anywhere from $18 to $48. And those $18 ones are the fold-away totes that I've seen businesses give away for $2 maybe. And the reinforced totes are at least $38, twice the price of these reinforced totes that you can easily find online for one. I've seen them sold in sets of 3 for $20. Seriously, they're 6 times more expensive for a tote bag. But their founder is going to claim that they're on, the low end of retail. Big no. If 31 is trying to be the name brand of tote bags, fine, I really don't care. But acting like they're affordable and saying their gifts are less expensive than their competitors is just ridiculous. Seriously, this article from Biz Journal that came out in 2012 said that their average product sells for $20, but the only products that I'm seeing that are under $20 are what look like to be cheaply made pouches that frankly look like they should be from Five Below. And if you don't know what a Five Below is, it's kind of like an elevated dollar store experience. It's like a tiny step above since their objects are typically $5 or less. And Five Below, by the way, has a cosmetic bag for $5 that's sort of like a marble white with gray tone with the words "You Make Me Blush" in it in gold, and that's $5. And that seems reasonable to me for what it is. Yet this little tiny camel pouch is $16. So how is 31 the low end of retail? Anyone can charge what they want for their products, fine. It's just lying claims that I find eye-roll-inducing. As for the reviews, let's read a few. After all, with this cost, the product should be high quality, right? Well, Kay said, the fake leather handles straps on the tote bag is peeling and flaking. This product is nothing more than Chinese junk. Marcienne also wrote to the BBB and said, I purchased a bag about 10 months ago. Recently noticed that the interior liner is peeling and splitting. Very disappointed in this bag as it was costly. When I contacted the company, they advised that the bag must have been put in the washing machine, and that's the only way this would happen. I received no satisfaction and no compromise. Advised that there is a 90-day return policy. Perhaps I should have also purchased a liner for the bag. This is not a product that I would purchase again. Marissa Kay also wrote, worst quality for a product ever. There's only a 90-day return period, so when my bag ripped from the seams 6 months later, I was told I was out of luck. Who sells junk and then doesn't stand by it? There's plenty of other reviews about how the consultants handled matters as well. Stories about customers that complained only to try and be sold more products or just outright ignored. The consultant, Deborah, even complained, saying that she placed an order for her customers in August. As of writing the review in mid-October, she still had not gotten her order. It's embarrassing to have to tell your customers that their order still isn't in after almost a month, Deborah wrote. Hilariously, 31 did actually respond to her and said that a representative from consultant support would reach out, and they hope you continue as a 31 customer. Even Deborah's own company called her a customer, and I just find that a little funny. I thought she was a business owner, right? Well, another consultant, Bell, also complained of shipping issues. I think you get the idea here, though. They have a 1-star rating on the BBB, and while there may not be hundreds of reviews, it's about impossible to find anything remotely positive about them either. In fact, the only real person I've seen listed for why people buy these bags is because they do offer the ability to customize them. They have small designs like an anchor, a baseball, a few animal faces, and things of that nature that you can put on the bags, then you can add a line of text underneath. It's pretty basic stuff. However, since you can't easily find this at conventional stores, that's what's kept 31 in business. Otherwise, based on their price and quality alone, it doesn't seem like they would have actually lasted. According to one source. As such, the type of products that this company offers does give consultants an advantage. Customers cannot easily go onto Amazon or another source to get the same product. Additionally, if people tried to buy the products from another source, they wouldn't have the option of customization. I suspect the quality of the bag is strongly connected to the type and the price. For example, purses are fiddlier, involving zips, and tend to have less rugged material. So those items will be more likely to break than some of the large totes from the company, which are basically large bags with handles and tough fabric. The issue of quality is a major problem if you're a consultant. It could easily result in lost customers and decreased profit overall. If the company had good customer service, then this would help to reduce some of the issue. However, reviews on the company's service in this area are mixed. All of these issues would make the process of making money through the company that much harder. All in all, their products seem like a gamble. It might fall apart, but I guess for what it's worth, you could get a few personalized touches if that matters. Now, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about their shady activity, both from the company and from the community around it. One interesting bit of controversy that 31 found themselves in is through their charity, 31 Gives. I've talked about charities connected with MLMs before, but if you aren't aware, these charities are often used as a selling point with little other benefit. They may partner with beneficial charities or questionable ones, or the charity may throw the retreat to help people and call it a day. It's a bit of a mixed bag, generally speaking. They're pretty meh, to say the least. The 31 Gives, on the other hand, fell into controversy with their sellers because they indirectly donated some of their funding to none other than Planned Parenthood. This sparked a ton of backlash because, well, they're a Christian charity and a substantial amount of the Christians tied to 31 were upset. According to an April 2012 article, Abby Johnson, the pro-life former Planned Parenthood abortion facility manager, first exposed the connections between 31 Gifts and Planned Parenthood partners in a Life News blog post, and Susan Michelle Tyrell of Bound for Life Youth Pro-Life Organization followed up with more information on the connections. Among its contributions to Planned Parenthood-affiliated organizations are the YMCA, consistently on Life Dynamics Planned Parenthood funding list, Girl Scouts, which has close ties with Planned Parenthood, and some very explicit sexual teaching, and the Women's Fund of Central Ohio, which not only funds Girl Scouts, but also brags about its Planned Parenthood funding, Tyrell said. Without question, 31 gives its funding to places that provide abortions. 31 replied with a very lengthy statement, a part of it reading the following. The 31 Gives has not provided any direct funding for Planned Parenthood or any other activities outside the scope of our mission, but Tyrell calls the statement a funding shell game that provides indirect support for Planned Parenthood. This funding shell game has been an issue for pro-lifers for a long time. Recently, the biggest public appearance of it was with the Susan G. Komen Foundation supporting Planned Parenthood, she said. All along, Komen has asserted it gives money to the abortion provider for breast cancer screenings, not abortions. We have reported on the issue of fungibility of funds many times. It's impossible, of course, to donate money to a place that provides abortions and not add to their funding. That's the shell game. Move it around a bit and put it in the right accounts. But the nature of funding is the more money someone has for one thing, the more it frees up money for another thing. Tyrell says 31's founder, Cindy Monroe, according to its own website, sits as an honorary member at the Ohio's Heartland Girl Scout Council, even though the Girl Scouts has connections with Planned Parenthood. And another group, the Women's Fund of Central Ohio, directly donates to Planned Parenthood, Tyrell indicates. In other words, even if 31 isn't giving money directly to Planned Parenthood, they're giving money to organizations that support Planned Parenthood. And the thing is, I've got mixed feelings on the situation. First of all, Planned Parenthood does so much more than abortions. Whether or not you agree with them, they're just not an abortion clinic. Let's make that clear. Secondly, sure, I think providing money to Susan G. Komen is an absolute joke. I have an entirely separate episode on them, so I'm sure that won't come back as a shock to any of you. But third, my issue isn't that 31 has indirectly provided money to Planned Parenthood, but how shady they've been about it and how they claim one thing but do another. So, the thing is, even though I personally am not offended or upset by 31 indirectly giving money to Planned Parenthood, if I put myself in their religious consultant base's shoes, I can kind of see why their employees would feel betrayed by the company. Again, this isn't something that I'm bothered by, but I can at least try to understand why that would have sparked controversy with such a, religious base. As for their other behavior, many argue that it's been questionable at best and downright cultish at worst. I know that calling an MLM a cult is often overused, but at times it's just the best word to describe these so-called businesses, and at 31 that is absolutely pretty damn close to the case. One website called Cult Marketing goes through a few hallmarks of a cult and how 31 lines up with them, the first of being their point of view. The first example is how 31 is not only based on rigid ideals and beliefs, but how often in opposition to an enemy. The reject the haters mindset is definitely common in MLMs, 31 being no exception. They also have a defined hierarchy, as Cult Marketing explains. Many cult brands are based on the vision, power, and personality of its leader. Cindy Monroe is the highly visible founder and vision keeper of 31. She has deflected offers from financial investors because she wants the purity of her vision to remain intact, not to be influenced by ROI and other objectives. She claims she did not do this for the money, and she and her claim are authentic and believable. Cindy is also the front person on the website and at their events, and has almost legendary status with the consultants. There's also love bombing, community building, and stories of those that speak out against the company being ostracized, as one former seller says. You are going to be chastised and told you aren't a Christian if you dare speak out and or criticize the company. You are going to be told that you should lie to your customers and put a positive spin on anything that goes wrong with goofed up orders, etc., even when it's apparent the company is totally wrong and has major problems. You are going to be told to stress the Christian aspect of the company and then told to do things such as only putting the people who say they will have a party into your drawings for door prizes when you say anyone can win. Here's the thing, I was successful at 31 Gifts. Although I did in advance, I broke even in my year with selling their product, which is what I thought I'd do in my first year. I was successful, but the stress on my ethics and beliefs wasn't worth the money. In the year I was spending with the company, the product quality went way down, the customer service also did. When every order has a problem, I'd say that is a big warning sign, and there was nowhere a consultant could go to complain or vent. There is a group for consultants, but only positive things are allowed to be said. If you've been in an MLM, please don't think you're stupid. And yes, I do believe it's important to do research before joining, but these MLMs are designed to prey upon people. I do hope that this former seller is doing better, and that for many former sellers that may be listening or watching this, depending on where you're hearing this, that you don't beat yourselves up too badly. You can learn and grow from experiences like these. Now, before we continue on to discuss the lawsuits involved with 31, we're going to take just a quick moment to hear from today's sponsor. We all shop online, and we've all seen that promo code taunt us at checkout. But thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupons is a thing of the past. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart. Honey supports over 30,000 stores online, and some I didn't even expect, to be totally honest. A few of you may know that I'm actually going to be starting a luxury brand line soon for ethical and sustainably sourced homemade products, and it's taken me, I think, at this point, a year and a half of research just to make sure I get my supply chain right. So I was doing some research at one of these new wholesale stores, and I was actually purchasing stuff, and honey popped up, and I was like, why is honey popping up here? And sure enough, money saved. What? I didn't even expect that. And I was like, thank you, honey. They saved me $500, by the way. But anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Here's how honey works. Imagine you're shopping at one of your favorite stores, and when you go to check out, the honey button just drops down, and all you have to do is click apply coupons and just wait there for a few seconds while it tests out all the coupons.
Intense Protect 50 Plus, our ultra-effective self-care for protection no matter the conditions.
Perry hadn't sent out marketing emails. 31 fired them, and Perry said, okay, well, pay me the $250,000 you owe me first. A couple years after this was fired, Perry recovered over $100,000 for their consulting services, but the case, generally speaking, didn't give either party exactly what they wanted. Especially since Perry did breach the contract by demanding extra contractual fees, not following fee dispute procedures, and threatening to terminate access to their Salesforce platform. Neither came out looking squeaky clean in this lawsuit, to be honest, but if I had to choose who looked worse, well, it's hardly a surprise that I'd say 31 gifts. I don't want it to sound like a kid saying, they did, but to some extent, this whole issue started with 31. If they paid Perry to begin with, it doesn't sound like this would have happened in the first place, and the company probably would have gladly sent out those marketing emails. I mean, why wouldn't they, right? They would have been getting paid at that point. Alright, so as brief as that was, it's time to move on to our favorite part of looking at any MLM. What are their numbers like? Can you actually make money with 31? Well, no. Plain and simple. Over a fifth of their consultants earn less than $1 a year, and that's not including operating expenses, so we can say definitively that by their own numbers, at least a fifth of their sellers lose money. That number is probably higher, given that distributors often spend quite a bit of money on the MLM they're a part of, whether because they have a stash of products at home or because they buy it to use it and take photos with, such as Monet and other supplements. Since 31 is a party MLM like Pure Romance, Tupperware, and plenty of other MLMs that we've discussed, you better believe that these consultants have quite a lot of products on hand. Just to briefly speak on their party structure, one source explains. The party structure is interesting, and it can also be limiting. This structure means that your income is connected to an amount and size of sales within a given party. So for a physical party, you would collect orders during the party and then send them off at the end of the party. Your commission, bonuses, and any other factors are then calculated from the success of your party. However, the structure does make it harder to make individual sales. In this case, the base commission rate is 25%. This can be increased up to 34% with volume-based sale bonuses. However, you still need to move up in the ranks to hit those sales bonuses, and we'll come back to those ranks shortly. If you only plan to focus on sales, then you're going to be limited to a 25% commission rate. Thankfully, you don't need to purchase and resell the products. Customers order these through catalogs or through your website instead. That being said, 31 Gifts does offer a 40% discount on products that you order personally. Some distributors might choose to order that discount and then resell the products for more income. Doing so could get you in trouble from the company. Any sales made this way wouldn't count towards your rank requirements either, and your customer service could be problematic if there were any issues with the products. The discount might be nice, but it doesn't help consultants so much unless they're ordering products for themselves. It's a little strange to me, and it rubs me the wrong way when you realize that these consultants could literally make more money buying and reselling the products on their own than actually selling through the company. It just doesn't seem like a great way to incentivize an employee, at least in my opinion. Their income disclosure also reveals that about 85% of the consultants earn less than $1,000 a year, and around 96% will earn less than $3,000. Generally speaking, if you want to actually earn a living wage and be above the poverty line, then you have to be in the very top 1% of this company. So, to make a long story short, chances of earning a living through this company are as good as none. This doesn't stop at income claims from rolling in, though. Dina, or Truth in Advertising, has an entire webpage devoted to 31, as they do for many MLMs they come across, according to their article. Between June and November 2017, Tina.org investigated every company on the November 29, 2017 Direct Selling Association membership list and found that more than 97% have made or are making, either directly or through their distributors, false or unsubstantiated income claims to promote the company's business opportunity. It's not as if these claims only existed in 2017. Tina has consistently discussed deceptive income claims and the harm they do over the years. They're a fantastic source for that. The point is that 31, a company that's on the Direct Selling Association, uses their DSA status as if to make them appear more legitimate. If you look at the bottom of their homepage, they'll say that they abide by DSA ethics, but frankly, DSA is nothing more than a lobbying group that protects MLMs, not the consumers. 31 is no exception to this 97% rule. I make false claims too. Another point I found interesting in their MLM disclosure is that when they state that their MLM doesn't require consultants to maintain inventory, in fact, they prohibit this practice. And, I really have no choice to believe them if not for the fact that there's footage of the inventory, former consultants stating that, they believe that they don't have the pressure to sell everything that's just sitting in their basement, countless boxes filled to the brim with random inventory. So either this former consultant, a YouTuber that goes by the name Lola Geek, was breaking company rules, or this is far more common practice than 31 wants to let on. Not to mention, Lola's experience with the company is pretty eye-opening as well. According to her, she was required to make $200 every 3 months in order to stay active. She typically threw 4 parties a year to meet that goal, but it didn't really go above and beyond, and says throughout her video that she just wasn't motivated by the company anymore, so she slowly started to make less and less. Even so, Lola insisted that she would always manage to make that $200 because she wanted to stay active, even purchasing products for herself to do so. If she didn't have the sales goal by the beginning of that 3rd month, the company would email her and let her know, and Lola would ensure to meet the 200 goal in time. Yet in May 2018, the company just deactivated her account. They gave her no heads up before they did so, and it was in the middle of the month at that, before the final cutoff for her sales requirement. What an absolute garbage way to treat your people. Unfortunately, this MLM still seems to be growing. Even if they aren't nearly as bad as some of the others we may have talked about, it's still upsetting to see any predatory company succeed. According to NBC4, as of 2019, the company announced it was moving its national distribution center to Texas towards areas with significant potential, such as the southern U.S. and Mexico. So it really does seem like they're going to be targeting those communities Cindy mentioned earlier after all. Other sources, however, paint a very different picture of the story. One claims that they're leaving Columbus not due to expansion, but because their lease wasn't being renewed. It was an obstacle turned into an opportunity, according to Smart Business Online. I'd hardly say an MLM really qualifies for a website called Smart Business, but that's beside the point. Yet, despite this being Cindy's vision, Cindy's company, she's actually stepped down from her position as CEO. One source states, Cindy Monroe will step down as CEO of 31 Gifts, but maintain a role with the company, passing the torch to Elizabeth, former CEO of Jamberry and executive at Nu Skin. Monroe founded 31 Gifts in the basement of her Tennessee home in 2003, specializing in bags, accessories, and personalized gifts. Additionally, Tracy Gray Cool, who worked closely with Warren Buffett as a key deputy at Berkshire Hathaway, will take an ownership stake in 31 Gifts. Though Cambrick, the investment firm Brick Cool leads, she will become a partner and owner with founder Monroe. This is incredibly disconcerting to me. Nu Skin is notorious, and Jamberry, well, they're not so great either. I've talked about both before too, and Jamberry was mentioned in the Color Street episode for those of you who may have missed it. Now, this company is either going to crash and burn or grow massively and hurt thousands more with the way